Hello and welcome to the first of another mini SBK podcast series. We ran a similar set of podcasts for the Cheltenham Festival this year and the response was very good. So we're back for Aintree and the Grand National meeting. My name is Tom Collins. This is Ross Millar. If you didn't watch the Cheltenham Daily podcast, this is what you should expect. Over the next few days, we're going to provide a daily podcast this week, all 3 days of the Aintree Grand National meeting. They're going to be 15 minutes roughly in terms of length. We'll go through the majority of races, or in this case, all of the races, and hopefully provide plenty of winners and talk about a couple of talking points as well, whether that be ground or a review of a couple of races the day before. Right now, what you need to know is that the ground over at Aintree is testing. It's soft, heavy in places on both courses. The national course is slower at this stage than the chase and the hurdling course with a going stick reading of just 3.0. So you've got to be looking at the horses that like deep ground. That's one thing that you should always be focusing on. Right, before we get into a couple of the races on Thursday, and this is what this podcast is all about, Thursday's racing, not the Grand National itself, we will be doing a separate podcast, which will probably be up on the SBK's YouTube or Spotify channels by the time you're watching this. Before we get into that, Ross, how are you? And are you looking forward to Aintree this year? I know you went last time around and you had a great time. Are you going this time?
No, so I'm not able to get over this time, TC. We've got my in-laws visiting, so it's seen as running away if I escape to watch racing when they're visiting. I am looking forward to it. It's always a meeting that whenever I talk about, I caveat, it's not a big punting meeting for me. I think you can get strange results. People talk about horses getting over Cheltenham, and of course, some horses will get over Cheltenham very, very quickly and run to their form, and some just simply won't. And because of that and the degree of uncertainty that gives, it's always a meeting that I tiptoe with my punting rather than sort of wading in, if you like. But I'm looking forward to it. I think there's some good racing. Slightly disappointing, some small fields on Thursday, but I think that's to be expected with the ground, particularly perhaps with Irish sort of trainers thinking that maybe they'll just hold their horses back for having fresh at Punchestown, maybe.
Yeah, exactly that. Okay, let's get straight into Thursday's racing then. The opening race is the Grade 1 Manifesto Novices Chase. Now, trends tell you to focus on those towards the top of the market. There hasn't been a winner of this race bigger than 17-2 in the last decade. There's only 5 runners this time around, so there probably won't be a big price winner this time either. Grey Dawning is the favourite, around even money. You could have got a little bit better before the final declarations. Do you like Grey Dawning, Ross?
I don't really, TC. He's just not my sort of horse. And I was against him at the Cheltenham Festival, and I think I have to concede I was wrong. I should have been with him. He was by much the best horse in the race, and he duly won. I was a big fan of Ginny's Destiny. I see it very hard to see where in this race Ginny's Destiny can turn the form around. I think the flatter track would arguably suit Grey Dawning better. The soft ground is going to suit Grey Dawning better. I think it's just set up. Now, maybe at the price disparity, which was not there at Cheltenham, which is there now, around about even money versus 3-1, you could make an argument that makes Ginny's Destiny perhaps a little bit more attractive. But personally, the two at the head of the market aren't for me. It's probably not a race I'll have a bet in. If I were to have a free bet, if anyone wants to offer me a free bet, I'd perhaps chance Blow Your Wad, who has been a good horse for Tom Lacey. He's particularly performed as well on flat tracks around Kempton. The ground is a bit of an unknown, and he would have to step up on his performance, but he did finish second in the Silver Trophy at Chepstow at the start of the season, conceding around about a stone to the winner. The ground there was heavy. There is a difference, though, between heavy coming out of the summer into the winter in October and heavy ground we've got now. But he did seem to cope with it. He goes there fresh, which I like. So he might be an interesting alternative for you if you are struggling to decide whether you want to side with Cheltenham for.
Yeah, Blow Your Wad's currently just under 10-1, 9-1 in places. There is 8-1 as well, but obviously you want the bigger price. He's a 6-year-old. There are 2 6-year-olds in the race, him and Aintree Tomp. 6-year-olds have won 7 of the last 10 renewals, so that's an interesting trend for you. I have to admit, I think Grey Dawning's the most likely winner. I think the price is probably fair. I know there is a greater disparity, and it's a good point that you mentioned there, Ross, with Ginny's Destiny and Grey Dawning, completely different prices as they were at Cheltenham Festival. However, like you said, I just don't see how Ginny's Destiny can reverse the form. So it's going to be Grey Dawning for me. Aintree Tomp doesn't really entice me. Colonel Harry's just wrong at the weights, and I understand the case for Blow Your Wad. He just needs to improve against better horses. Let's move on to the Grade 1 4-year-old Juvenile Hurdle at 220. So Gino is your odds-on favourite in this race. The horse everyone's been waiting for all spring. He didn't run at Cheltenham due to the yard form with Nicky Henderson. but he's going to be running here. Now, that yard form hasn't really got any better, has it, Ross? I mean, he's only had 2 runners in April. Yes, he's had a winner from those 2 runners, a horse called Easy Peasy, who was sent off a very short price, but he's not exactly striking right now. And in February, he only had 11% win rate. Since February, sorry, he's only had 11% win rate. So I don't really know about this Henderson form. And he's a very short price to Gino. Are you leaning with him or are you against him?
No, I really hope he wins TC, and I think he's by far and away the most exciting horse in this lineup. But odds on about a horse that didn't run at Cheltenham, and clearly didn't run at Cheltenham because they had concerns over the health of the yard. Like you say, 2 runners is far from a sort of sizable sample to be making any sort of decision on. It could well be, of course, that it works in the positive, and that the 1 runner that ran well is a sign of the health of the yard. But I would much rather watch him at odds on. I think Caliph de Burley is another exciting horse, probably for fences next season. He should like the soft ground. But Give Me 5 slightly let the Kempton form down when he was well beaten at Fairyhouse over Easter. Again, a race I'll watch at a bigger price. I do think you could make a case for Nürburgring being exciting for Joseph O'Brien. I think he'll cope with this ground. He was given a poor ride in the Triumph Hurdle. There's no doubt about that. And people get very upset when you say that poor rides are given. I gave horses poor rides when I was eventing, and footballers have poor matches, rugby players have poor matches. It just happens, and to not comment on it is nonsensical. He was given a poor ride. He was too far back, finished in very eye-catching fashion. Now, whether he was flattered by his finishing effort because he wasn't ridden up with the pace remains to be seen. But I do think he's probably better than his odds of 10-1 suggest. He'll cope with the ground. Flat track might suit him better as well. Joseph O'Brien won at this meeting last year, so I do think Nürburgring is interesting at his odds of around about 10-1.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a fair price. And actually, I agree with you with Caliph de Burley as well. I think he's a nice horse. And I would actually have him as second favourite rather than Cargis, who might take a step backwards from the Cheltenham Festival. But it's all about Sir Gino, and very much like you said as well. I would love to see him win, just as a neutral. I'm not going to have a bet in the race either, but Sir Gino is the one horse in here that could be a proper champion. And hopefully he can get back in the winner's enclosure and provide Nicky Henderson with a timely tonic. Let's move on to the Grade 1 Aintree Bowl now, just before 3 p.m. at 2:55. It's a pretty good renewal as well. Gold Cup runner-up, Gerri Colombe's in the field. Last year's winner, Shishkin's in there as well. And facile Cheltenham victor, Corbett's Cross, is in there. They're the 3 at the top of the market. Who do you like, Ross?
Well, it's Thunder Rock, isn't it, TC? My favourite. No, I only said that just to see your face. I think this is probably a little bit beyond him. This is undoubtedly, for me, the best race of the day. I think there's lots of different angles and facets to this. Gerri Colombe is not a horse I've ever gravitated towards. I think he'll like this ground, and I can see why he's a short price favourite. Corbett's Cross is really interesting, but it was a big effort he delivered at Cheltenham as a novice. Can he build on that, or is he going to be better next year? I would perhaps lean towards the latter there. Certainly wouldn't dismiss him though. But I do and have always loved Shishkin. He's now racing over what we now realise is his optimum trip. I mean, how this horse had the speed to be winning Grade 1s over 2 miles is surprising, really, given that he just shows endless stamina. He was, in my mind, going to win the King George. There's no doubt about that. Was powering away when unseating Nico 2 from home. Yes, he missed Cheltenham. That might well prove to be a blessing in terms of looking at this race. He'll arrive here fresh. He won it last year, and it looked unlikely last year on better ground. He looked like he got outpaced and then just hit the turbo over the last couple of furlongs. So this slower ground should suit him even better. It's going to make it a strong test. 5-2 is maybe a little bit skinny when you consider, as we just discussed, the Nicky Henderson form. But I'm confident that he is the best horse in this race. He's not the shortest price, and so therefore he's my fairly confident selection.
And if Sir Gino wins the Juvenile Hurdle prior to the Aintree Bowl, then maybe Shishkin will be even shorter, with punters getting more confidence in the Nicky Henderson yard. As you say, 5-2 right now. Gerri Colombe's 11-8 favourite. Look, I'm a broken record, Ross, I have to say, in this race. I'm going to be betting a Hoist Signor because it's Aintree and it's the spring. And like every year, that's what I do. I bet a Hoist Signor. He comes to life at Aintree this time of year. Look, this season's not gone to plan for him. He needs to bounce right back to his best, but he always runs well here. I wish there was 8 runners, because 3 places at around 12, 14 to 1, whatever price he is now, would have been very enticing. I'll still bet him each way and hope that he runs in the top 2. Grade 1 action continues with the Aintree Hurdle up next. No Constitution Hill, unfortunately. So Bob Olinger currently tops the market. Impaire Et Passe, Lucia, Langadan, Nemia Lion, they're all in opposition, among others. Who do you like, Ross?
I found this race tricky to get excited about, if I'm honest, TC. Impaire Et Passe is a horse I was really excited about seeing this year, and he's perhaps on the face of it being a little bit disappointing. But as we discussed before we came on air, you have to caveat with that with he was running against a champion hurdle winner and a Stayers hurdle winner, so maybe his form isn't that bad. But I slightly took the view that maybe what he achieved as a novice was overstated. Bob Olinger, having been in the wilderness and seemingly gone at the game, to coin the phrase, has been a revelation again this year. I really like what he did at Cheltenham. He quickened up like the Bob Olinger of old. It's been kept fresh for this, and Henry de Bromhead at no point, even when Constitution Hill dropped out the champion hurdle and it looked more open, at no point was Henry de Bromhead entertaining going for the champion hurdle. This was Bob Olinger's Gold Cup. He'll cope with the ground very happily. I think he's the quickest horse in the race. I think he'll stay well. So it's Bob Olinger for me, although I would like to see Impaire Et Passe get back to something that he'd shown last season.
Yeah, I'm going to be taking you on. I like Impaire Et Passe quite a lot in this race. I agree that he's probably underwhelmed a little bit this year. Based on what he did as a novice, he had every chance of progressing to be one of these real star performers in our sport, but he hasn't really cut the ice this time around. He's been running against State Man, as you say, and this is his perfect opportunity to win a Grade 1 this year. And I just don't think there should be such a disparity in price between him and Bob Olinger, but it should be a good match between the two, and they've both been kept fresh for the race, which is fantastic. Okay, we'll rattle through the remaining three races. We've gone through all of the Grade 1s. Next up is the Foxhunters. Now, I have no opinion in this race, to be honest with you. It's just not my bag. I know it's yours, though, Ross.
Well, yeah, I do like the Hunter Chases, TC, but I've got a good record in the Cheltenham Hunter Chase, but actually in this, not such a good record. It's on the line is the right favourite. I think you got outstayed at Cheltenham, but as I said, some horses recover, some horses won't. I'm not in the fold with him, so I don't know, but he had a brutally hard race, I thought. I mean, he was absolutely legless at the finish. So my percentage call is to oppose him. A horse I've always loved. He's a really handsome, striking horse. Is Lieutenant Rocco, high-class chaser back in his day. He is only a 9-year-old. He's not a veteran yet. Very sound jumper, strong traveller. Has run well a couple of times this year under a fairly inexperienced amateur. He now gets the assistance of Will Biddick. That is a jockey upgrade of significance. Sid Hosey knows what he's doing. He's come to this sport from a very unusual route, but he's able to train winners. I think Lieutenant Rocco will really enjoy this test. He has certainly coped with the jumping aspect of it. So I thought around about 28, 33 to 1, he was an interesting outsider and one that I would certainly have a little wager on.
Yeah, nice big price there. Ross is known for his big price winners in this type of race, so definitely don't overlook Lieutenant Rocco. I'm still not over. It's on the line, finishing second at Cheltenham, I have to say. I know you put up the winner there, C Nominee, but I backed It's on the line, and yeah, it was heartbreaking stuff. On to the Red Rum Handicap Chase now. Another tricky affair with another wide open market. Dan Skelton had Ettalon and Pembroke in this race in the entries. He's taken them both out and now relies on Unexpected Party, who won the Grand Annual last month at Cheltenham, and Heltenham. Last year's winner, Dancing on My Own's in the field as well, while many may like Irish challenger Path Doru. Who do you like?
I don't like this race, TC. I was really keen on Ettalon because he's been very impressive. I actually wrote after he won at Sandown that he would perhaps be one that I would oppose going into the spring because I think he wants soft ground. And then, of course, he got a very wet spring. So I was really excited to see him. He doesn't come here. The fact that he doesn't maybe suggests that Dan Skelton, who of course is challenging for the trainer's title, feels that he can land this with one of his other two runners. Heltenham just got the job done last time, but clearly thrives at this trip and on this ground. But Kieran Gethings is on him, and Harry Skelton's on Unexpected Party. He would have had the choice. He is up in the weights Unexpected Party for winning at Cheltenham, but he did it in good style. I think he'd been plotted to come down in the handicap, so maybe this mark of 146 isn't beyond him. He'll like the ground. Round about 9 to 2 was appeared to me to be a fair price. So in a race that I usually really enjoy, I'm a bit lukewarm on it this year, but Unexpected Party would be the selection.
Yeah, it's very, very similar to what I was going to say. I do love this race. Last year, I put up Dancing on My Own when he won at a good price, and I wanted to come into this race with another strong fancy, and I really liked Pembroke, but as you say with Etalon, Dan Skelton's not declared either of them, so that kind of threw me off. I would like to see Dance on my own win, but I probably won't have a bet, which is disappointing actually for a race like this. Now we end with the Grade 2 bumper. 5-year-olds have won 8 of the last 10 editions. Ireland have won 4 of the last 10 renewals as well. I think this will be another one for Dan and Harry Skelton. I have to say, Honky Tonk Highway is their runner here. She just looks the perfect type. She loves soft ground. She'll relish the long home straight at Aintree. She's just an out-and-out galloper who wants a trip in time. They tend to get racing early in this kind of event, and that will definitely suit her. Are you with me or are you against me?
No, I can see the angle, TC. I was disappointed to see Anno Power not declared, although not surprised because she looked like a very quick mare at Ascot when really sprinting home. She'd be one to follow forward. Baby Kate, I thought, she's a short enough price, and I'm hardly breaking any ground here by saying that Patrick Mullins and Willie Mullins have got a chance in a bumper with a mare. But she arrives here relatively fresh, relatively lightly raced, but with a bit of experience. She won at Cheltenham on testing ground, so that the conditions here aren't going to be an issue. Mares' bumpers are not races I tend to get involved with, but in terms of selection, I think she is a fairly solid chance.
So we've covered every race there. Now it's time to let the watchers know who are our best bets. Please tell me your nap and next best, Ross.
So the nap, you wouldn't have thought you'd be saying this a year ago, but the nap is Bob Olinger in the Aintree Hurdle. I think he's got conditions to suit. He arrives there fresh. And the next best is my old friend Shishkin. I'm disappointed, still not quite over the fact he had to miss the Gold Cup. I think he would have shaken them all up. But he arrives here fresh. He'll love the ground. He's going to stay forever. So Shishkin is the next best.
Bob Olinger 6-4 for Ross's nap, and Shishkin currently best price 3-1 for Ross's next best. My nap is going to be against Ross's nap, and that's Impaire Et Passe in the Aintree Hurdle. So hopefully one of us gets the winner of that race. Otherwise, it could be a pretty dire second episode of this mini series. My next best is going to be Grey Dawning in the opener. It's not because I love his price. It's just I don't really fancy anything else as strongly as I would fancy him. So unfortunately, he has to go in the next best category. One offer for you to know about before you click off this podcast, and that is all new SBK users will get £30 in free bets when they sign up and bet £10 for the first time. Head over to SBK for lots of other offers and promotions throughout the whole weekend. Please join us once again on SBK's YouTube channel or Spotify, wherever you've watched this, so that you can watch our Friday mini podcast, 15 minutes there as well, where we'll be talking all about Friday's action. That'll be live, I imagine, around Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. So please don't miss out. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, like, and comment down below about who you fancy on Thursday at Aintree. Until then, best of luck.